let's have the conversation. Where Kevin and Zach reacts, let's react to it. If the Orioles don't make it to the ALCS, wow, that is crazy that you knew I was going to say that.
Come on, man. We've been doing this long enough. I know.
Does I'd go? I think so. If he makes it to the World Series, if he gets swept in the ALCS, it'd be interesting. But if you just made another step, if you make it to the ALCS, I think they would keep him. But if you can't make it out of the divisional round, if you don't make it out of the wild card round right now, I find it very hard to see him returning next year, just because you'd have to figure something out, especially if you only get 2 wins in the playoffs and then you're out again. Like you would need some sort of spark.
Yeah, I mean, it would just depend on where they feel like the change needs, because a change would have to happen. Like if they get to the playoffs and they lose in the ALDS again, and if it's as ugly as it was last year again, look, even if they struggle to get in, I still don't expect, even if they do lose in the ALDS, I would be pretty shocked if it was as ugly as it was last year, because that was a young team learning. But again, if you don't get out of the ALDS here, it becomes a pretty tricky conversation. And the reason I say that is because, look, personally, I think that they would need some sort of a spark as well. But does the organization, and again, I just want to play this from every angle, right? This is not what I would do. But does the organization sit there and say, well, yep, this is now Andrew and I are on the same wavelength, man. Shout out to you, Andrew. Does the organization say, well, pretty much the whole rotation went down with big injuries, and we were using all these rotation pieces, and all these guys were injured, and we were going through a bunch of stuff, and then, when the lineup, Westy hurt his hand, and guys were missing time. Does the organization say something like that and give him one more year type of deal to say, well, let's see what he can do with a generally better, healthy squad? The issue with that, though, is that who knows when Bradish is going to be back?
Yeah.
Right? Felix is going to be back by opening day 2025. At least you would hope, right? Like, I think that'd be a pretty long recovery, but you hope Felix is back by opening day 2025. But then what about Bradish? What about Wells? What about all these guys? So do they sit there and they say, well, okay, well, yeah, tough end of the season, but do they say, well, injuries played a part? I could see them going that route. I could also see them saying, well, we need something. We need someone else. So again, I just want to play it from both sides, because again, the injury thing is not something that I would use personally, because it just feels like, again, with some of these decisions, it's like we're on this show to give reactions, right? We give Brandon Hyde praise when he deserves praise. We did it literally less than a week ago, like less than 4 days ago, 3 days ago. Literally, we gave Brandon Hyde praise when we deserve praise. Like, we give guys praise when they deserve it. But when they have mishaps, when there are things that need criticism, we're also there to do that. We want to be an objective show to say, you did great here, but this was not great. And right now we are saying this and a bunch of other decisions this year weren't great. He's had his moments this season.
Yeah.
But so does every manager. So I don't know. It is an interesting conversation, because do you have any names off the top of your head if he were to move on, if the Orioles were to fire him? Do you have any names? Would it be Buck Britton?
I think Buck Britton better get an opportunity. I think, guys, I know everyone's Terry Francona. A guy that, and I know people might not like this, I would not be surprised if they moved on from Hyde. Now, this would get interesting because obviously it's the same regime. I would not be surprised if it is Freddie Gonzalez, the bench coach. I think he would get interviewed. I think Buck Britton would get interviewed. And then I think at that point you would go with a more experienced manager. It's kind of weird in baseball because like the young manager thing, like, in football, the big thing is, hey, go get the young guy, the young stud, and try to build for, the next 10, 15 years. for a little bit, like 5-6 years ago, that became a big thing. Like the Aaron Boones, the Brad Ausmuses. Like it was like, hey, let's go get. We see it with Stephen Vogt right now. I'll give it to him. Stephen Vogt worked out. But it is funny. You're seeing a lot of these older managers getting, third and fourth shots because they really they know how to win in the playoffs. They've been there, done that. And it's interesting. But I also don't know if a guy like, Francona, if some of these older guys are going to come in and go completely going to trust the analytics completely. You know what I mean? Like that's another thing where it's going to be interesting. Don't get my hopes up. I have said multiple times, I don't know how it happens. I don't care how it happens. I just need one time the Orioles get a World Series ring with Ryan Flaherty as manager. I need it to happen.
Man,
could you imagine this?
Oh,
bring back Buck.
That you know what? I think what it should be is the prince that was promised, Bobby Valentine. Let's go. Oh, I do want to bring up quickly this comment from Birdland Minute because with the whole conversation about do you move on from Hyde, do you not? He is clearly a player's coach, manager, right? These guys do love him, and like I talk about this all the time on Locked on Ravens with John Harbaugh. It's like he's a player's coach, right? Both the Baltimore coaches are players' coaches. So obviously for Brandon Hyde, it's like you want to have someone in there who does unite the clubhouse, who is a player's guy, who the players get behind, who they fight for. I think they do that with Brandon Hyde, but does that outweigh the other things that are going on? And I think that's the question the organization has to answer, because again, we are still so far out from whatever the playoff result is going to be, right? There's a lot of time for the Orioles to, get on a hot streak again. There's a lot of time for them to just completely lose it. Like there are so many different outcomes that we are kind of just assuming, well, if it all goes badly, then this will happen. If it all goes great, then this will happen. But it is a conversation to be had because look, the decisions made tonight are not the decisions you make to win in the playoffs. If you make those decisions in the playoffs, you lose. Why? Because you also lose in the regular season when you do it. Because we just saw tonight.
Yeah. And that is the fine line that they're going to have to toe, is the fact that if all the players absolutely love him, does that impact the clubhouse? That's why I would not be surprised if they do move on from Hyde, if it is an automatic, they want it to be Buck Britton, because all these guys have been coached by Buck. They've all come up with Buck. Buck's someone that they love. Obviously, Gunnar picked Buck to throw him BP in the home run derby. So Buck is another guy that they absolutely love. So I feel like if they really wanted to keep with the player coach, or not player coach, but the player's coach, someone that they all love, I really think that Buck Britton would kind of be the front runner for that job right now. Which I've kind of thought for a while, like even when Hyde was first hired, that Britton would eventually get the job, just because you hear nothing but, even when he was in Double A before he got moved up to Triple A, you just heard nothing but incredible things, and it was like, this guy is good. So I would not be surprised at all if it's not here. He's going to get a call somewhere to be, major league bench coach or something.
Yeah, I mean they will have options, but for now they're riding it out with Brandon Hyde, and man. There are certainly some high highs and some low lows with this whole season. Honestly, has been a bunch of high highs and a bunch of low lows, and I think it's frustrating because this team is so talented, right? They have talent, and it's nights like this where it's like, where you're taking the bat out of your two hottest hitters' hands. You're taking the ball out of your hottest relievers' hands. It's like you have the guys that are performing, but you're not using them. Or you're not letting them play as much as they need to be, at least tonight.
I accept.
People are saying.
I accept.
Man. Can I be your bench coach?
Yeah, Kevin. Oh, imagine the Kevin and Zach react after we.
Dude, let's do it in the game.
Yeah,
let's put up a poll put up a poll.
Poll in the chat. Do we pinch hit Jackson Holiday here?
30 seconds to respond. Does Jackson go in right here? Oh man, that would be electric. Jeez. Yeah. Man, I don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be. So I've seen a few people talk about David Ross. I would not mind that. at all. He's another player's coach, kind of in the Stephen Vogt type of role. Obviously, Ross won with the Cubs, but man, it just really sucks. But wouldn't it be kind of poetic, like Buck Britton leading us to the promised land after his brother Zach in the playoffs wasn't, brought in, and everyone thought that was could have been a